The ministerial summit for the 60th anniversary of the non-aligned movement began in Serbia. The COP15 summit on biodiversity protection officially opened in China this Monday, as countries meet to tackle pollution and prevent mass extinction weeks before the COP26 climate conference. Israeli occupation authorities announced the demolition of a Palestinian health center as part of the Palestinian territory's usurpation policies. From the headquarters of TeleSUR English in Havana, Cuba, this is From the South. I'm your anchor, Gladys Quesada, and these are the news. On Monday, the ministerial summit for the 60th anniversary of the non-aligned movement began in Serbia. The President of the Republic of Serbia, Aleksandar Vučić, opened the ministerial summit in Belgrade under the theme for the consolidation of multilateralism and pluripolarity, and welcomed delegations from 114 countries, including some 40 foreign ministers. The participating ministers will discuss the future of the non-aligned movement for 2 days. The full members of the NAM are 117 countries and one autonomous territory, conformed by 53 African nations, 26 LATAM nations, 38 Asian nations, and only Belarus for Europe. The NAM was founded during the collapse of the colonial system and the emancipatory struggle of the peoples of Africa, Asia, Latin America, and other regions of the world. Speaking at the high-level commemorative meeting as co-host and current chairman of the non-aligned movement, the President of the Republic of Azerbaijan, Ilham Aliyev, defended the dedicated efforts of the movement to preserve global peace and solidarity.
Since the establishment in 1961 in Belgrade, the NAM has played an important role in the international arena with its dedicated efforts for the sake of global peace, justice, solidarity in the world. Being the largest international institution after the UN General Assembly, the NAM is considered a genuine example of multilateralism, with its cross-regional membership uniting 120 countries from diverse historical, political, and cultural backgrounds.
And United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres praised the role of the non-aligned movement summit during the critical times of health, economic and environmental crisis, and the need to find common ground with the United Nations Agenda for Sustainable Development.
Strengths from the voice of the non-aligned movement in our pursuit of eliminating nuclear weapons and creating a world that is safer and free of the threat of weapons of mass destruction. In all our challenges, international cooperation and multilateralism are essential. Let's keep working together to translate ideas into transformative policies and concrete action. Action that puts a focus on youth and future generations, strengthens gender equality, ensures equal rights and opportunities, rebuilds trust, and creates more peaceful and just communities.
During his speech at the high-level commemorative meeting to mark the 60th anniversary of the first conference of non-aligned countries, the Foreign Minister of Venezuela, Felix Plasencia, reiterated the need to work together in solidarity as the only and surely way to move forward.
Look for cooperation and solidarity among us because we want to triumph over what should be our only enemy. We should work together in solidarity, multilateralism, in the spirit of multilateralism, in order to go back to the world where we will be able to live together better.
During his remarks at the high-level commemorative meeting, the foreign ministers of Russia, Sergei Lavrov, said the non-aligned movement played a key role in the international affairs and abide by the letter and spirit of the United Nations Charter.
the non-aligned movement is playing a very significant role in international affairs. It consistently stands guard to the principle of unconditional equality of all states, respect for their sovereignty and legitimate interests, advocates for a constructive multilateral dialogue in strict adherence to the letter and spirit of the UN Charter. Today, when the situation in the world is becoming ever more turbulent, and humanity has to counter an ever-increasing number of threats and challenges, the positive potential of the movement is especially relevant.
Palestine Foreign Minister Riyad al-Maliki referred to the importance of NAM's multilateralism for today's world and specifically for the Palestinian people that keeps enduring Israel's violent policies and try to find a pacific solution to it.
NAM has been instrumental in seeking a multilateral and peaceful solution to the question of Palestine. Ladies and gentlemen, NAM's objectives are yet to be met in Palestine. The brutality of Israel's illegal occupation, apartheid regime, and subjugation of the Palestinian people, whether besieged, occupied, exiled, or relegated to second-class citizens, continues unabated and with increasing impunity. But we remain steadfast. Our goal is to end this indignity, to end this blatant crime against humanity, rather than dissect its many layers of pain and injustice and lament about the vast human suffering and loss it is causing.
We'll take a short break now, but first, let's watch a brief clip about the electoral drills that occurred this Sunday in Venezuela, ahead of November 21st elections. Welcome back to From the South. A key United Nations summit tasked with protecting biodiversity officially opened in China this Monday as countries met to tackle pollution and prevent mass extinction weeks before the COP26 climate conference. The Asian giant has sought to position itself in recent years as a world leader on climate issues after Washington's withdrawal from international commitments under the Trump administration. The online session saw parties to the Convention on Biological Diversity working out the details of a new document that will set targets for protecting ecosystems by 2030. The debate included a 30 by 30 plan to give 30% of lands and oceans a protected status, a measure supported by a broad coalition of nations as well as a goal to stop creating plastic waste. This year's COP15 gathering was originally set for 2020 and postponed due to the COVID-19 pandemic. Over 1.75 million people have been affected by floods caused by continuous downpours in North China's Shanxi province, according to the Provincial Department of Emergency Management. More than 120,000 people have been temporarily evacuated. Some 190,000 hectares of crops were damaged and more than 17,000 houses collapsed, the department said. Emergency management departments of various levels have allocated 4,000 tents, 3,200 folding beds, as well as cotton clothes for kilts and disaster reliefs. The volcano on Spain's La Palma Islands is still spewing out endless streams of lava with no signs of ceasing. Authorities on Sunday monitored a new stream of molten rock that has added to the destruction of over 1,100 buildings. Anything in the path of the lava, homes, farms, swimming pools and industrial buildings in the largely agricultural area have been consumed. The collapse Saturday of part of the volcanic cone sent a flood of bright red lava pouring down from the Cumbre Vieja ridge that initially cracked open on September 19th. Alexander Schallenberg has been sworn in Austria as new chancellor following the resignation of Sebastian Kurz amid claims of corruption. The former foreign minister was formally appointed by Austrian President Alexander van der Bellen at the Hofburg Palace in Vienna on Monday. Sebastian Kurz stepped down after prosecutors began investigating him and close team members over claims that government money was used between 2016 and 2018 to ensure positive media coverage. The former chancellor's decision to quit means that the governing coalition between his conservative Austrian People's Party and the leftist Greens will continue. The diplomat denied any wrongdoing and said that allegations against him were false. Meanwhile, career diplomat Michael Linhart became Austria's new foreign minister. China and India on Monday blamed each other for the failure of high-level talks to ease tensions along a disputed Himalayan border. In a briefing, Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesperson Zhao Lijian said India's demands were unreasonable and unrealistic and urged its neighbor to abide by consensus on border issues to safeguard bilateral ties.
The Indian side persisted on its unreasonable and unrealistic demands, which has made negotiations difficult. China's resolve to safeguard national sovereignty is unshakable. We hope that the Indian side will not misjudge the situation, cherish the hard-won actual situation in the China-India border area, abide by relevant agreements and consensus between the two countries and militaries, show sincerity and take actions with China in order to jointly safeguard peace and tranquility in the border area.
The trial of 14 people accused of plotting to assassinate Burkina Faso's former president Thomas Sankara started this Monday, more than 30 years after he was gunned down in one of the most infamous killings in modern African history. The former head of state was killed in 1987 during a coup led by his former ally Blaise Compaoré. Compaoré was charged in absentia in April with complicity, undermining state security and concealing corpses. He is living in exile in neighboring Ivory Coast and has always denied any involvement in Sankara's death. Ivory Coast has refused to extradite Compaoré since Burkina Faso put out a warrant for his arrest 6 years ago. Thomas Sankara was one of the first African leaders to raise awareness about the growing AIDS epidemic. He publicly denounced the World Bank's structural adjustment programs and banned female circumcision and polygamy. Tunisia's President Kais Saied issued a decree appointed a new government on Monday, 11 weeks after firing the last one amid acute economic and political crisis. State television broadcasted the swearing-in ceremony of the cabinet headed by Najla Bouden, the North African country's first ever female prime minister. During her first public speech since her nomination, the prime minister said the fight against corruption will be the focus of the new government, as well as raising living standards of Tunisians and restore their faith in the state. On July 25th, President Saied dismissed the previous prime minister, suspended parliament and granted himself judicial powers in a move the opposition defined as a coup. In a statement following the ceremony, the head of state reiterated his decisions were constitutional in light of imminent danger facing Tunisia. And we go now to a final short break, so stay with us. Welcome back. Israeli occupation authorities notified on Monday the demolition of a Palestinian healthcare center, which is still under construction in the town of Al-Mulekh, north of the Jordan Valley. According to statements made by human rights activist Aref Darachmeh, almost a month ago, Israeli forces delivered notices for the demolition of educational facilities in the same area. The Israeli Information Center for Human Rights in the occupied territories denounced that Israel has been applying a systematic policy aimed at expelling thousands of Palestinians in order to appropriate their land. In this sense, the Zionist entity seeks to annex the Jordan Valley, the home to 65,000 Palestinians, which represents 30% of the area of the occupied West Bank. And also 6 Palestinian prisoners in Israel are still on a hunger strike in protest against their unjust administrative detention in the absence of charges and trial. According to the Detainee Affairs Committee, prisoner Kayed Fasfous is part of the hunger strike, which he has been on for 88 days, followed by Mugdakt Katouashmeth with 81 days, and the third prisoner, Ala Arash, with 64 days. The situation forced the transfer of the detainees to a hospital due to their serious health condition, to which is also added the alarming weight loss of each of them. Israel is currently holding more than 500 Palestinians in administrative detention, which is considered illegal under international law. Residents of the occupied Syrian Golan Heights protested against Israeli plans to establish new illegal settlements on their land. The Golanese denounced Israel's plans to establish new settlements on their lands, projects that include the construction of 7,000 new units with the aim of increasing the number of settlers from 40 to 100,000, in addition to installing 46 wind turbines on the villages of Majdal, Shams, Aniqiya, Bekatha, and Mazada. In the same context, these decisions constitute a violation of the resolutions of international legitimacy and the Charter of the United Nations, as the Arab people stated. And polls have closed in Iraq's parliamentary election with one of the lowest turnouts in years, after warning support for the democratic system brought in the following the United States-led invasion of 2003. According to the Iraqi Election Commission, only 41% of eligible voters cast their ballots in Sunday's elections. The established Shia-dominated ruling elite, whose most powerful parties have armed wings, is expected to sweep the vote. Results are to be announced within the next 48 hours, according to the independent body that oversees Iraq's elections. However, negotiations to choose a prime minister tasked with forming a government could drag on for weeks or even months. Iran on Monday called on European countries to guarantee an existing nuclear deal that the parties are set to revisit during a planned resumption of talks in Vienna.
Angela Merkel and the European countries know that without Europe's inaction, Trump would not have dared to withdraw from all the agreements or to violate the nuclear deal. The European capitals, including Berlin, have been passive spectators. We therefore expect all parties, when they arrive in Vienna, to know that they have no choice but to adhere to their obligations under the nuclear deal. They must give their clear assurance to the Islamic Republic that this time no party will violate the nuclear deal.
A meeting between Taliban and the United States concluded in Qatar, where the main topic was humanitarian aid and the end of economic sanctions. This weekend's meeting was the first face-to-face meeting since the U.S. withdrawal from Afghanistan at the end of August. During the meeting, the Afghan delegation stated that the best way to resolve the problems is to implement the Doha Agreement, which was reached in February 2020 between the two sides. The Taliban told Washington's representative that humanitarian aid should not be tied to political issues and urged them to end economic sanctions and unfreeze some $10 billion in Afghan assets. Washington described the talks as sincere and professional and reiterated that it will judge the Taliban on their actions. Firefighters put out a blaze that raged for several hours at a gasoline storage tank in southern Lebanon on Monday. There were no reports of casualties in the fire at the Zahrani oil facility, which sent a huge column of smoke into the Sakai. According to Lebanon Energy Minister Walid Fayyad, the fire resulted from a mistake while gasoline was being transported from one storage tank to another. Lebanon has been hit by a string of disasters, including the catastrophic chemicals explosion at Beirut port last year, which killed more than 200 people and devastated parts of the city. At the weekend, fuel shortages led the country's two biggest power plants to shut down completely, adding to the hardship of Lebanese who have struggled with insufficient supplies of state-generated power for months and often face long queues for vehicle fuel. And we have come to the end of this news brief. But remember, you can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. And also, if you feel so inclined, please join us on social media. We are on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Telegram. For TeleSUR English, I'm Gladys Quesada. Thank you for watching.